I'm out today on the misty moorlands of Derbyshire to seek out a number of fascinating heritage sites, long barrows and stone circles and the like. But not just any sites. These ones have interesting connections to land spirits and a strong link to local folklore. It's said that Hobs lived, or live, in these parts. But what is a Hob? It's essentially a generic term for a brownie, a goblin, a boggart, a whole host of creatures found in English folklore. The lines are very blurred when it comes to precise definitions of what constitutes each one. To put it simply though, a hob is a term used across England for a land spirit, and the nature of these land spirits can be extremely varied. Some can be mischievous, some can be helpful, and others will simply just want to be left alone. My first stop is the Hob Hurst House.
So this is the Hob Hurst House, and you can see that there used to be some interpretation here, but it's been weathered and hasn't been replaced by English heritage. Note as well that there's stone markers all around the sides of the Hob Hurst House. These indicate that it was a conservation area, a heritage site in the Victorian period. You can see the VR on it. So yeah, this is a Bronze Age chambered round barrow on Bunkers Hill, and apparently you can see Chatsworth House from here, but as you can see, not much chance of that today. Now, like many burial mounds, people believed for a long time that this place was haunted or inhabited by a creature, a hob or a boggle. The names are often interchanged, and there was belief that he inhabited the woodlands surrounding the area as well.
Thomas Bateman began the excavation here in 1853, which revealed at its centre a stone-lined grave or cist in which a body had been cremated. Hob Hurst's house signifies the abode of an unearthly being, accustomed to haunt woods and other solitary places, wrote Bateman in 1861. He believed that Hurst was an old name for a wood, hence his comment about the hob haunting the nearby woods. But Bruce Dickens, in his 1942 paper, Yorkshire Hobs, derived the name from an Old English word meaning giant. So there is debate about the nature of the creature that lived here. There's evidence of belief in hobs and continuing traditions well into the 19th century in remote Derbyshire villages, just to give you an indication of how recent belief in these things is.
I think the weather today illustrates how easy it is for people to believe that a creature would inhabit somewhere like this. You've got to imagine, a few centuries back, someone's out walking on the moors and it's very misty, very windy, and you come across something like this. Apparently, many people saw this hob, this boggart. Who are we to doubt them?
I'm now at Arbor Low, one of the most important prehistoric monuments in Britain. A huge stone circle surrounded by earthworks and a ditch. Excavations have shown evidence of human burials here, as well as arrowheads and tools made from bone and antlers. If we come inside the henge itself, we see the stone circle standing on a platform, and it contains about 50 stones of local limestone. All but one of them is fallen. Perhaps they were placed lying down deliberately though. Who knows? It reminds me of a clock face when looking at it from above, and the whole area is so well preserved.
Arbor Low's been referred to as the Stonehenge of the North, and I don't think I'd call it that. This place is unique. It has its own feel to it. It doesn't have to be in the shadow of Stonehenge, and I wouldn't exactly call Derbyshire the North either. In the centre here, people leave offerings. So we've got some flowers and stones. There's some beeswax candles and even a crystal there. I'm going to leave some coins myself on the top, just like some other people have done. But what are the offerings for?
It's likely this place was a centre for rituals and ceremonies, and similar traditions seem to continue to this day. There's a number of reasons people leave things here, perhaps for good luck, perhaps for the ancient dead, perhaps just because it feels right, or maybe as a tribute to the land spirits. It's likely that local people have known about the burials here, or at least assumed that the dead were buried here, for a long time. This site was known to be haunted and a place to be avoided at night. In Romances of the Peak, a 1901 book by W.M. Turner, we hear about how he comes away from Arbor Low after a visit in 1897, and he gets speaking to a local herdsman tending some cattle. He asked him if he knew how this site came to be here and what its purpose was. The herdsman said he didn't know. He only knew what people had told him, that it had been undisturbed for generations. He said he'd heard talk that there might have been a battle here at one point, and people buried around the area. Turner asks him, "How did you come to know that?" The herdsman replied, "Well, you see, the folks round about never go that way at night for fear of Boggarts. Several have been seen prowling about, and it is the common talk that people must have been buried there." From Arbor Low I spotted something else which I'll quickly show you before I move on. This is Gib Hill, and what we'll have here is actually two prehistoric barrows, built one on top of the other about 1,000 years apart. In January 1848, a team of excavators led by Bateman, the same man that excavated the Hob Hurst House, dug a trench and tunnel into the early Neolithic long barrow, and they found flint tools and cattle bones. When the tunnel suddenly collapsed, a stone cist fell down from above, containing burned human bones and a decorated pot. This was from the upper round barrow, dating from the early Bronze Age. Moving on now though, there's one last spot I want to find concerning Hobs and Boggarts out in the Derbyshire countryside. I'm now headed to a place called Deep Dale near the town of Buxton. It's a steep-sided gorge, and there's a cave here that's associated with the Hob.
So I've been cutting through some fields and I found the Deep Dale, but it seems I'm on the wrong side of the gorge, so I can't get down to what I'm looking for. But I have found it. It is the cave down there, known as the Hob Hurst Cave.
Now, I couldn't find a way down, so I started to head back to my car and was ready to move on, but I chanced to meet a group of local lads and I asked them if they knew how to get down. They pointed me in the direction of a path, and so, thanks to them, I was able to descend into the gorge and look for the cave. You just can't beat local knowledge. So, in the last hour of daylight, I made my way down, and the place had quite a magical feel to it. It reminded me of Wistman's Wood in Devon. Now, in the cave I'm looking for, it was believed locally that a boggart or goblin of some description lived here. It seems that people used to leave things outside the cave, and the Hob would mend it for them, such as a broken bucket or some worn-out old shoes. If he was annoyed though, there'd be misfortune come in the way of those that crossed him. A charm used in this area stated, "Churn, butter, churn, Peter stands at our gate, waiting for a butter cake, churn, butter, churn."
Oh, now it is dark and spooky in here. I can imagine that it wasn't too hard for the mothers of Derbyshire to convince the children to keep away from this place. It seems to go on quite a bit as well. Not sure how deep. I have been thinking when I'm here about lost and forgotten folk traditions, and I was thinking, when people came here centuries ago, did they leave offerings for the Hob? Perhaps, hopefully in exchange for help on the farm or good fortune of some kind? Or did they stay well clear of this place? Was the Hob purely malevolent and would bring only bad fortune if it was encountered, if it was disturbed in this hole? Makes you think. There's definitely a feel to this place. Perhaps eerie's not the right word. It's powerful. I'm going to go with that.
If you enjoyed this, you might like to watch my video on a Hob that lived in the Northumberland village of Elsdon. As always though, I'd like to thank my patrons and supporters that make it possible for me to travel to these locations and spend as much time as I can bringing attention to the lost and forgotten folk traditions of the British Isles.